For the contest, we asked photographers to submit photos they have taken during the past year in Florida. We had 4 categories: portraits, habitat, action, and other nature. We got about 120 photos total. We put the photos online, and then we asked people to visit the photo contest website and vote for their favorites. And we had more than 200 people vote. And then we also asked 2 professional level photographers to pick their favorites, and they'll share those tonight as part of what we're calling pro picks. And when we posted the photos, we didn't share the names of the photographers who took them, so their names remained anonymous on our website. Joel is going to
even started
in slideshow. And oh, let me back up for a minute. We're going to ask everybody to mute themselves right now, or Mary, can you mute everybody? Thank you. Okay, so Joel's running the slideshow. He'll be asking some questions. Joel heads up the Tampa Audubon Photo Club. The photo club meets at 6 o'clock before our general meetings, and anybody's invited. We ask that if you'd like to show your pictures, you submit them to Joel a day ahead of time. And if you go to our website or sign up for our newsletter, you'll get information on how to do that. So during the show tonight, first we'll show people's choice, and those are voted by the visitors to our photo contest. And when we show the winning photos, we'll ask the winners of these photos to talk about their pictures. And if the winner's not available, I'll just read a short description of information provided by them. And then after the people's choice photos, we'll show the pro picks, and those are chosen by 2 of Tampa Audubon's expert photographers, George Veazey and Roger Sheets. And they're also joined by their wife. Roger's wife is an accomplished nature artist. And then George will be joined by his wife, Jan. So hopefully everybody's on mute. And then when your turn comes, just unmute yourself when your photo's shown. And then if you have a question while you're viewing the photos and you want to ask a photographer a question, just type it in the chat box. Mary's going to monitor the chat box, and she'll ask the question. You might want to include the name of the photographer that the question is for, in case we jump ahead, but we'll do our best to get the questions answered. So I think we're ready. Is everybody ready? Okay. First, we'll start with the portrait category, and we'll show the honorable mention, Scott Keener's picture of a painted bunting. Go ahead and, okay. Scott couldn't be here tonight, but he said his photo of the painted bunting was taken at Circle B Bar Reserve in Lakeland. He said painting buntings have always been his favorite bird to take pictures of because they have the most color and they are not the easiest subject to photograph. He used a Sony A9 with a 200 to 600 millimeter lens to take the photo. He always shoots in manual mode because he likes to be in control of the camera. His image was processed in Photoshop with minimal changes. He doesn't do much in Photoshop. He likes to keep the file as raw as possible. He did some cropping and changed the exposure. On a final note, he said, "Thanks for letting me be part of this contest and congrats to all the rest of the winners." So now we're ready to go to.
Well, I have a question or two, comment.
Sure.
I wanted to mention that on the left side of the screen, we have some information. It's called metadata, and a lot of cameras, in fact, most cameras do record this. It can be turned off or it can be deleted later, but a lot of people just leave it on. It's very important information for looking back at your pictures or learning about your pictures. And I wanted to comment on a couple of things here. This camera was obviously set probably on automatic because these are nice even numbers here. But the fact was that it was shot at an f-stop of 5.6. And what 5.6 is going to do, it's going to blur the background more than you would normally find. And a 500 millimeter lens is certainly a long lens. And obviously that's going to be a long telephoto lens. Okay, and the ISO is a little bit in the ballpark too. It's a medium ISO. Okay, so if there are any questions, we'll go on to the next one. Second place, Carol. or Sandy?
Oh, second place, Carol Egan, picture of a great horned owl. So you can go on. Carol couldn't join us tonight, but she said this photo of the great horned owl was taken at Philippi Park in Safety Harbor. She used a Nikon P900 on auto setting and did not use any post-production on the photo. To prepare, she just pretty much got excited to see the owls and went to the park to photograph them.
Yes, and the numbers over here obviously are automatic numbers, and they're fine, no problem. Are there any questions at all about this one? Go on to the next one.
Okay, this is first place, Donna Tippin of the cattle egret, and Donna's here, so she can tell us about the photo. Donna, are you here? Unmute yourself.
There we go. All right, so I'm a newbie. I'm a fifth grade teacher, so when I'm not in the classroom, you can find me exploring bird and animal habitats. It's a hobby that's grown into learning about photography now and capturing some fascinating species. So after years of snapping pictures with my cell phone, my husband gifted me, he went big. He said, for anniversary, I'm not going to give you bling. I'm going to give you something that I think you'll really enjoy. So we went big with the Nikon D7200. And more recently, I got the Tamron, the 150 to 600 telephoto lens. And I also don't have Photoshop or Lightroom or know how to use those yet. But I love, I'll learn those tools, but I love taking photos of nature at its best. So though I frequently visit Tampa Bay area parks, we have a little getaway place along the old Kissimmee River. And that's where this portrait of the cattle egret was taken. The Kissimmee River, just great history. It flows down the middle of Florida, central Florida, into Lake Okeechobee. And we have so many rookeries along the river and trees and shrubs and on small islands. And so you can also find these beautiful egrets in the pastures and marshes. And of course, they're associated with cattle. For us, my husband is my captain. He just turns off the boat as we see the rookeries, and we just meander up very quietly to get up and personal with these beautiful birds. So I named this portrait To Impress because this fellow is showing off his breeding plumage, looking for his mate. Adults are white and have a yellow bill, and you can see here that it's the breeding plumage on the back, head, and chest. And the cattle egret's breeding plumage also highlights their beautiful peach feathers. They often appear, which I love in this one particularly, to be wearing spiked top knots. And of course, remarkably, is their plain orangey beaks, which turn a striking deep reddish orange. I am colorblind, so I always get help when I'm doing my colors. But I can tell those are very vivid purple lures around the eyes. And I am also very humbled and thrilled that my photograph was selected as I'm approaching many years of teaching, 38. And as I get into my retirement, I'm looking forward to learning more about using my camera and participating in my passion of birding. And I'm very excited to be part of the Tampa Audubon Society now and look forward to learning from the experts.
Donna, did you use an automatic setting or a...
Yes, as I said earlier, I said, I hope I didn't get spanked for it. My husband, sometimes he'll turn the boat around, and I'm not ready for manual when the boat is rocking, and sometimes some of the birds in the rookery are moving quickly. And so I am learning right now. A fellow Circle B photographer is working with me, so I'm very excited to learn more.
Excellent picture. Did you hand hold the camera?
Say it again.
Were you hand holding the camera?
Yes, I was on a boat that was moving.
Yeah, you must have very good arms. ISO, I notice the ISO is a little low for this type of picture, but it does make a very good picture. Normally a picture of this sort in a boat with a speed would go to maybe 400 or 800 or higher. So you might want to just keep that in mind.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We always try to get the sweet light when we are going into the rookeries.
Yeah, excellent picture.
Thank you so much.
You.
Okay, now we'll move on to the birds and habitat category. And our honorable mention is Anthony Goldman of a great horned owl flying. And Anthony's here today, so he can share some information about his photo.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a great horned owl, also photographed at Philippi Park. I am recently retired. I'm a cardiologist, but stopped working December 31. So I've enjoying my hobby, whereas previously I was only able to go out on weekends that I didn't work. I can now get out every day. So these great horned owls, I was fortunate enough to watch every couple of days. So we learned there. There were a lot of photographers who were often there at Philippi Park, and we learned the behavior of these owls. And this is the female, and she always perched herself on a branch, was there anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, and they would always fly to the nest. So we were set up hoping she would fly to the nest. And after many attempts, I finally got one in focus and everything else worked out. I was utilizing for the photo a Canon EOS 1DX Mark II. I handhold, I don't possess a tripod. I was also using a 500mm lens with a 1.4 times converter. When utilizing the SLRs, I mostly use aperture priority, which I use there. And I set my aperture at 5.6, which is wide open for that setup that I was using. I also use auto ISO, and the ISO turned out to be 500, and the speed was 1 out in 800 seconds. What I also did was when she was perched, she was in fairly bright sunlight. So I used negative 2/3 of, I had been using negative 2/3 exposure, but knowing from past experience and watching the activities and where she was going to fly to, I changed the exposure compensation to 1/3 plus. And fortunately, that worked out very well because she did fly into lower light, and that worked out pretty well. I also, this photo, this particular one that's in the competition was virtually untouched, other than a little bit of lightning. But it was uncropped, which really shows the natural habitat very well, with a beautiful background to work with, and all the Spanish moss, which made the whole setting. But the photo also works very well cropping. In general terms, I use Photoshop elements and for my editing, and I crop a little. Usually I crop a lot and I do a bit of sharpening, but for this one I basically didn't crop it. I hardly changed it and just left it as it was.
I think you did an outstanding job. If I had one suggestion, I would say to go with a slightly higher ISO, which would higher shutter speed.
Well, since I've switched over, or in the process of switching over to mirrorless systems, I'm now shooting mostly in manual, and that gives me more control. And in aperture priority and auto ISO, the camera set the ISO. But shooting now in manual mode, I change everything. I set my my exposure. I set the speed. I set the ISO. I do everything on which seems to work better.
Yeah, I think you did a wonderful job. The 5.6 is a good a good range for the f-stop. I mean, it's going to give you a bird background. It's going to give you slightly higher speeds, and your speed is high. Normally for a picture of this sort, most photographers would go to at least 1,000th of a second or higher, and the ISO to 800 or 1600, which would give, again, a higher shutter speed. But you did a wonderful job, and I love the eyes. You can see the glit, which is in the eyes, and that's something that a lot of photographers try hard to get. That's the holy grail, I guess, of getting a good picture of it.
Yeah,
Excellent. Thank you.
thank you.
Hey, now we're ready to show second place, Mary DeGrief of a pileated woodpecker family. Mary couldn't join us tonight, but she shared this information. This photo was taken in my horse pasture last year. I'm very fortunate to live on a large piece of land in Manatee County. The pasture has a number of dead pine trees. We always leave the trees for the birds and other animals. Somewhere around the end of February, I noticed an adult pileated woodpeckers remodeling a hole up in one of the pine trees. I would see one or the other working away, wood chips just flying. Luckily, it was very easy for me to observe them every day. I crossed my fingers and hoped for offspring, which she got. Sometimes toward the latter half of March, I saw the parents feeding the chicks. Finally, I got this photo. It wasn't long after this that the youngsters fledged and I never saw them again. I shoot almost all of my bird photos with a Nikon D500 and Nikkor 200 to 500 lens. I have a standard setting I tend to stick with. Aperture priority, ISO automatic with a maximum of 2000, 1/4,000th minimum shutter speed. For this photo, it was f5.6, ISO 1800, and 1/4,000th of a second, and 500 millimeter. She uses Lightroom for post-processing. The photo was cropped and lighted and shadows adjusted. She tries to make the photos look as natural as possible.
Yes, and you can see here the ISO is 1800, which is very good because it helps you with a higher shutter speed. And the 5.6 again is a good shutter or f-stop for this particular type picture. Very good job. Thank you.
And our first place winner is Carol DeVillers, and Carol is here, so she can tell us about this photo.
Yes, okay, so this was taken at Fort de Soto at North Beach in the early morning of March 24th this year, around 8 a.m. I was actually photographing snowy egrets that were following red-breasted mergansers in the water. And there was a bunch of photographers who was doing the same thing, but they would move along as the birds progressed in the water. But I preferred to stay where I was in one place and let the birds come to me or pass by me. So I was by myself, seated on my folding stool, waiting for the snowies to come back my way. And while I was enjoying the shorebirds in front of me, I noticed to my left 5 or 6 marble godwits taking off very low and flying in my direction. I followed them with my lens, took several pictures of them, and to my great delight, they turned around to be against the wind, and they alighted right in front of me. So the early morning light was just perfect, and to me, it was like a gift. I had nothing to do. I was just lucky to be at the right place at the right time.
Excellent picture. I wanted to point out something to some of the rest of you here. You notice that she used f14 for the shutter, the lens setting. That gives you a greater depth of field, and you have 2 different birds, and both of them are in focus, and it's partly because of the f-stop being a higher f-stop. And of course, she used a 1600 ISO, which is more, it gives you more shutter speed range. So that's an excellent combination of settings. Good job. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Now we're ready for the birds in action category. And we'll start with our honorable mention, which is Ronald Kotinski of a roseate spoonbill, which he has titled Pinkaboo. And Ron is here to tell us about this photo.
Hi. So I took this photo in the stick marsh, and I learned about it from another photographer, and I was told that it was best to get there early in the morning. And the challenge there was it's in Melbourne, so it's a 2.5 hour drive. So I loaded up my kayak the night before, and I left about 5 a.m. to get to the site at sunrise. And I do shoot from my kayak, not always. And just for FYI, it's not necessary to have a kayak to shoot at the stick marsh. It's the rookery for the spoonbills is fairly close. I used a 500 millimeter f4 lens. I use a Canon 5 DSR, and I take a lot of shots. There's a lot of action there, so if you miss one, there's spoonbills coming in and out of that location. So you get many opportunities to take multiple shots. In this case, I typically will shoot at f4, but there's a lot of light there, and light colored birds tend to blow out. So I had to step it up to f5. Shutter speed was 1/2500th of a second, which was more than enough to freeze the action. Now I always shoot raw, so I do edit in Lightroom and Photoshop. Lightroom is the majority of my edits are made in Lightroom, adjusting clarity, color, exposure. In this case, I also use Photoshop. There was a stick that was on a piece of the wing, so I did use the spot remover tool to take out the stick.
The ISO seems a little low. Is that something you did on purpose?
Yes, I did. I also did a negative bias. Like I said, I tend to find that in bright light colored birds, at least on the Canon, will tend to blow out. For example, eagles being the most challenging to shoot. I typically have to go down -1 EV or more because head detail will be lost. And then since I'm shooting raw, I'm able to bring the shadows back, adjust exposure accordingly.
I wanted to increase the size of the eye. This is an excellent, when you take a picture, this is where most people's eyes will be drawn toward the eyes of the bird. And in here, you can see how clear it is. And there's even a little speck of light there, a glit. And the f-stop being f5 is going to be a very narrow range of focus. You see how this is not in focus, but this is, and this is not in focus. And that's partly because of the f-stop being 5. But that's good for, that's okay for this picture. What that's going to do, it's going to give you, allow for a higher speed, which is going to be sharper and catch a lot of the action going on here. Was this a multiple, in other words, you took multiple pictures of this bird at the same, I would assume, right?
No, this is just, well, I mean, of the same, you're asking me if this is multiple exposure photo or if I took.
No, was it set to take multiple pictures?
Oh yes, burst mode. So yes, I shoot manual, I use auto ISO, and I use burst mode. And I track and pan as quickly as I can. So I've gotten pretty good at doing that just from practice.
Well, yeah, obviously you're very good at it. Yeah, definitely. Okay, it's a wonderful picture. Outstanding.
Okay. Now we'll move on to second place. Joanne Clement's picture of the great horned owl taking off. And she's here.
Yes, I am. So I don't know if everybody just kind of recognized this owl because this is the third time we're seeing the pictures today. This female this picture was taken like very early morning. I think it was like late at night, 6:30 p.m. So that female was actually just like taken off from the nest and went to perch herself to just like, do her business of defecation. And I knew she would come back, but I was taking a chance by following her where she was, and I knew she would probably just go back to the nest. And just like the way she was like handling herself, I knew I was able to just like do something about it. So I was very lucky because I just decided to just like follow up. I usually shoot raw. And then I do some Lightroom adjustment. Usually this one was like mostly like the crop, just because I wanted to give the that action, you know, just to make sure that everybody knew like she was like ready to go. That's about it. I mean, that particular nesting situation in Philippi Park, these two birds, they come back every year in the same tree. So we all know that we're going to have owlets like every year. So we just, you know, we're just like a bunch of photographers under the tree, just waiting for that to happen.
Well, Joanne, I noticed that you shot it at f4. That's going to give you a very narrow range of focus, but you must have had a spot focus because this area here is beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
What was it on spot focus?
I believe no, I believe so. Yeah, yeah.
Because everything else is, you know, it's out of focus. You see around it, and it's right here is perfect. And
Yeah.
it's a very narrow range. But I mean, I'm saying that's good. It's good. It's just unusual to be shooting f4, which is a little bit going to give you a little narrow range. Probably the lens is going to be wide open, probably.
Well, I shoot with a bridge camera, so you know, I'm not quite sure yet like what to do. So I just know that if I shoot birds, I go really high speed, especially in this situation, and I tried to go like maximum f4, but I don't know why I did that.
Well, it's hard to find fault with this picture. Okay, I want to make sure you understand that. But shooting at a slightly higher, I would say 5.6,
Yeah,
or even a little higher in that range is going to give you a little bit of extra focusing area around here. And also it's going to give you a little forgiveness because the bird is moving.
yeah.
So you're going to be more able to capture a greater range in this area here. But it is really, really hard to find a lot of fault, or any fault really, with this picture.
Again, lucky.
That's a beautiful picture. Thank you very much for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much.
Bear with me here. I got to back that off.
Okay, now we'll show the first place winner, Chris Poldervart, Osprey air-to-air combat, and Chris is here today.
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
So this was taken almost outside my front yard. I live in a little lake community, so my front yard opens up to a lake, and I walk the dog around the lake, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a day. But we have a lot of osprey activity, and so earlier this year they were pretty active. This was Marchish, and I just would carry the camera with me, taking the dog for a walk. I have a Sony A7R III with a Sony 200-600 lens. And I use a shoulder strap and just let it hang by my side. And if I see something interesting, I'm ready to shoot. And so I shoot manual mode, except for I use auto ISO so that I don't have to really think much about exposure, because the criticality for me is I want my my f-stop where I want it at f6.3, and then I use for when I know I'm looking for action bird photos, I shoot at 1/2500th of a second. And then I let the ISO sort of take care of the exposure part. I do shoot in RAW, so I can clean that up. I use Affinity Photo. And the only edits I really usually do are any exposure adjustments, contrast, a little bit of contrast. I might play with shadows and highlights just a little bit, and then cropping. And then after that, I'll do a little bit of sharpening if needed, depending on the photo. A lot of people don't notice this particular photo has a fish in the grasp of one of the osprey. I think a lot of my friends didn't really notice that when I first showed this on our Facebook page. But I was walking the dog and I saw these two ospreys sort of going at it like literally air-to-air combat. They were swarming around each other, and I was trying to figure out what's going on. But my first instinct, I had the camera with me, is I just pulled up, and then I use a tiny spot focus in burst mode and just followed the action and got, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 really interesting shots. And this was the one that I liked the best out of that particular session. Yeah, and then I take the dog home and then pull the camera memory card and see what I got.
Excellent.
One of them.
Yeah, you can see how clear the eye is, and this area here is where apparently you were focusing in, and that's an excellent image of the eye and the face of the bird. Was this 600 millimeter lens a Sony lens as well?
Yeah, it's a Sony G Master 200-600.
A G.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a 400G. Yeah, thank you. Excellent. We have a lot in common in that regard. Okay, well, excellent picture. Love it.
Okay, now we're ready for all other nature, and this is anything but a bird. So we'll introduce our honorable mention, Nanette O'Hara of a purple thistle with a Gulf fritillary.
Thank you. I took this photo in March of this year when my husband and I were staying for a week in Everglades City, and we had terrible weather for fishing, so we did a lot of just driving around and looking at birds and wildlife. And this was taken off Turner River Road in Big Cypress Preserve, and my husband literally spent about 3 hours driving me very slowly down this road, with me yelling stop about every 50 feet. If you've ever seen the movie Driving Miss Daisy, that is us, and I am Miss Daisy, and he's very patient, and he drives me around a lot and puts up with me. And I happen to just adore thistle. It's an incredible pollinator plant, and I would just challenge you, when you see a thistle anywhere, to get out. You're going to see pollinators on it. And this was a Gulf fritillary butterfly on the thistle. And it was pretty early in the morning. I think I was actually using my my long lens because I was doing bird photography as well. So sometimes I try to make my long lens also a bit of a macro lens, and this was that case. So you can see that this was all the way at 400 millimeters, which is the full range of my long lens, and at a very wide aperture. So I would have that blur in the background. And I do process in Lightroom, so I think I did a little bit of exposure and shadows and highlights to really bring out that purple thistle, and that was about it. But that was just a wonderful day. It's a wonderful memory, and I love this photo, and I was happy to get it, especially with a zoom lens.
Did you use a flash at all on this?
No.
No.
No, I did not, because I was doing bird photography at 400 millimeters. So, you know, I wasn't going to be able to use a flash for any of the, we actually saw a ton of bluebirds on Turner River Road, but also egrets and herons. And so, you know, this was just happenstance with my love for thistles, that I was just taking picture of thistles and bees and butterflies with the long lens.
Well, it's a really good shot, and obviously it was taken when the lighting was just about right, because I don't see any shadows to speak of here. And that's why I asked.
Yeah, it was really beautiful light. And you know, in the winter time, that good light stays. This was what, March, so it was late winter, early spring, and that beautiful light stays with us a little bit longer, you know, earlier in the year.
Excellent picture. We're going to miss you.
I'm going to keep my membership up in Tampa Audubon.
Oh, good.
So you'll still be seeing.
Okay, now we're ready for the second place winner. Tiffany Long took a picture of a Southern black racer, and Tiffany's with us today.
Hi guys.
Ooh.
So I don't really have a fascinating story because all of my pictures are taken in my backyard mostly. So I went around the corner, or my husband did rather, and he's like, "Oh, there's a snake." And I said, "Oh, go grab the camera." And he's like, "Are you serious?" And I said, well, yeah. He's like, but it's a snake. And I'm like, so? So he goes and gets the camera. And I shot in shutter priority. That's what I've been shooting with lately. And I wanted to get the tongue, the snake tongue, capture the snake tongue. So I crop my photos typically. I don't like to do much editing. I did just purchase Lightroom, but I don't know how to use it. So I lightened it with the exposure a little bit. It was a little too dark. I was reading about ISO. I'm fairly new with, setting my camera. I used to shoot in automatic, embarrassing. But I read that if you go higher in the ISO, it comes out grainy. So I set this rule in my head to not go above 500 for some reason. So it came out a little dark. So I adjusted the exposure, but that's really all I have to say about that.
Well, you nailed it this area. You nailed it really, really good. The f-stop is a little in the narrow range. What I'm saying is you're going to have a less range of focus, which you can see here is less in focus, and here is perfectly in focus. So that's a narrow range. If I had a suggestion, I don't know, I probably would have gone a little higher with the ISO and a little higher in the f-stop for this particular type picture.
Sure.
But it's hard to find fault with that. Now, this is an excellent picture, so don't take me wrong. It's really, it's one of those catch as catch can type pictures, and you don't stop and think a lot about what the settings are at the time. I've been there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now for the first place winner is Ileana Dessa of her photo of Magic Light. She was not able to join us tonight, but provided this information. This picture was taken on my favorite place in Tampa Bay at Fort DeSoto Park in February. It was early in the morning and it was a cloudy day. I love to walk very early when I can to hear the birds and waves from the beach. I don't have a camera. This picture was taken with my cell phone when I noticed a magic, colorful light on the scene. I used an iPhone 8 Plus. I am not a professional. I just enjoy taking pictures as a way to relax my soul and mind.
Remarkable picture. The information, a lot of phones give you the option of removing the metadata, and you see here there is none that we can look at. But generally speaking, a smaller chip, in other words, on a camera, the more depth of field that you get, and that's an important consideration because cell phones have a very small chip, but they have outstanding depth of field. So that's a characteristic. You see, this is very clear, and this is very clear. It has a very broad range, and otherwise, it's a wonderful picture, outstanding.
Okay. Now that completes the People's Choice. We'll go on to Pro Picks. George Veazey's going to share his favorites. Let me tell you a little bit about George. He's been a photographer since 1966 when he started as a staff member of the yearbook at USF. Over the years, he's done commercial and wedding photographer and photographed numerous rocket launches at the Kennedy Space Center. He got fully involved in photography with the advent of the digital world and became more involved with Tampa Audubon. From that point on, his love of birds and bird photography grew. George is joined by his wife, Jan, who may share her comments too.
Thank you, Sandy. First, let me say, you can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay. When you first gave me the task or invited me to participate, I wasn't really quite sure what I was getting into. I know that the club did have the contest this year. We briefly saw it, but we spent a lot of time out of town, and I actually didn't consider getting involved in the participation of the actual contest. But when you ask me to get involved, I turn to my wife, and she has a lot of experience in interior design and creativity. So really, all of these choices are joint choices by us, just to let you know. When we first started looking at the photos, we had no idea who took them. We had no idea what the settings were. We had no idea what the equipment was. And so I turned to the rules of the contest, and I quickly realized this was what I call a people's choice. It's not about the techniques, it's not about the processing, it's not about how expensive your equipment is, but it was, what does the average viewer like about the photographs? Now, having said that, and Jan and I did not know who the winners were, we just realized that she and I picked 2 of the 4 winners, not knowing who was selected. So I thought we did a pretty good job. Anyway, this one is not one of them, the first one. The biggest thing we did was we tried to go based upon the guidelines given to the participants, meaning how well the image fit the category and how well the image fit the description of the category. So with that said, let's get started here. In this particular image, and again, we didn't know who shot it.
Back up, show who shot it. Did you show that slide?
Say again?
Did Joel show the slide of who took the picture?
Yes, he did, but when it skipped over, I missed it.
Let's go back and show who the winner who took this picture.
It was Linda Bennett.
Yes.
Okay, good for you, Linda. Anyway, for me and for Jan, we've been down to Coral Gables and we photographed the burrowing owls a lot, but when you think of the term portrait, I think this thing just really hits you right in the face. It fits the rules of a very classical portrait of somebody who is formally dressed for a formal occasion and just ready to go. The symmetry of this image is extremely good. It meets the rule of thirds. The background is blurred out, which adds to the fact that it's going to cause the viewer to look directly at the image. And then the main thing is the bird is actually looking directly into the camera lens. That's what attracts your attention. Sharpness. It looks pretty sharp to me. So what do you think, Joel?
Excellent. It looks almost like there might be a flash or something, supplemental light, because the background is so dark. I don't know. What do you think?
It's hard to tell, but usually when you have a flash, you're going to have a reflection in the eyeballs.
You see the shadow there?
We don't have that here. The image is extremely clean, clear, it's crisp, and the colors are very, very pleasing. To me, a photograph that fits this kind of quality is, would I put this on my wall in a 20 by 30 format and really enjoy it? And I think you'd have to agree with that kind of an assumption.
Linda is here. She said she did not use a flash. Linda, you can pop in if you like. I guess she doesn't want to.
Am I back?
Oh, there I am. So,
Okay.
yeah, no, I did not use a flash. This was taken in pretty bright sunlight early in the morning. And this was on a friend's farm in Manatee County. So this is a private farm that has these owls.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's so well balanced. I mean, it's almost like you posed her and she did what you wanted her to do.
Did you have to pay her?
I did.
How'd you get such a dark green background?
Yes.
Yeah, it just brings everything forward.
Yeah, it was in a pasture. So that's why I got the dark green background.
Okay.
Like I said, you would be absolutely stunningly proud to put this on your wall in a 20 by 30 format. It's beautiful. That's all there is to it.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Donna Tipton.
Are we related?
Here again, Jan and I relied on the title of the category and how well it fit the description of the category. And in that category, it talks about showing the relationship between a bird or birds and its habitat. And that's exactly what this does here. I could almost think that this was taken somewhere in Lakeland on one of the lakes over there.
You are correct.
How about that? Although the elements of this photograph are very simple,
It says a lot.
it says a lot because it's clean. There's a relationship between that bird and the turtle. It's almost like they're talking to each other. And it's not just about the bird. You're talking about the substance of the photograph, meaning the trees, the water, and the foliage,
You've got it
everything
all
that's
there,
involved in
rocks.
it. Here again, the image is cropped very, very well, centered. It's a good composition, good balance in the post-processing. Again, anybody would be proud to have this hanging on the wall at home.
You have a bright future.
Yes, you
You're
do.
just starting this. You're amazing.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I always feel like my subjects are just doing whatever they're doing at the right moment, and I'm just lucky. So
Well, let me,
Timing.
yeah, go ahead, Jim.
No, it's all about timing. You're right.
Let me chime in on what you're saying there for anybody else that's in the audience. Yes, you're absolutely right. We have to, I always say the difference between us and people who do artwork and paintings and stuff, we can't choose when we get the best photograph. Painters can create what they want. We have to capture what nature gives us, and it takes the timing, it takes the light, it takes the knowledge of the camera, it takes your patience, it takes your skill when you're looking at the image itself through the viewfinder. And I think you've done a wonderful job with this. Joel, what do you think about the numbers?
Definitely. It reminds me though of the whole adage that you can't catch a fish without putting a line in the water. And here we have somebody that's going out looking for it and noticing, when they see it. The numbers are very good, and I'd have trouble finding fault with any of these numbers. The ISO is 400, and it almost looks like it would be an automatic setting with 1,000th of a second. But I don't know if it was automatic or not, but it does look like it might have been.
Thank you, Joel. Want to go to the next one, Sandy?
Sure. We've got his choice for action was Chris Poldervart for Osprey air-to-air combat.
Yep, this is one of the 2 out of 4 that we also chose. And again, we did not know the kind of equipment. We did not know who the photographer was. We were just looking at the image in and of itself and how that image actually fit the category.
They couldn't be in any more action than they are.
You couldn't have, the action is so intense there. And yes, I remember the creator of this said a lot of people didn't realize the fish. We did. We saw it. And because of that, if you're standing in a gallery looking at this, and we had to look at it on a computer, but if you're standing in a gallery looking at this, you realize the intensity that's going on here with the chase of one bird going after the other because they're going after that fish. Again, it fits the category that's being presented here extremely well. And I see that it was taken with what was it? Can't tell. I'm not-
It's a Sony A7R III.
Okay, yeah, Sony. Number two in the market is Sony, and that's a good camera. It's obviously sharp. So again, as I close on every photograph, you would absolutely be proud to have that hanging somewhere in your house in a 20 by 30. That's all there is to
How
it.
many shots did you say you took, Chris? 4?
Well, I did burst mode, which, you
Okay,
know, I
yeah.
probably, the whole scene took place in only a matter of probably 5 or 10 seconds that was
Sure,
happening in
sure.
front of me, and then they're gone.
Sure.
But I think I got 3 or 4 usable
Okay.
shots out of it.
And all you need is one.
Yeah.
All
There's
you
another
need is-
really cool one, which almost made my pick for entering, where they're exactly edge on, and it looks like they were posed. It's kind of a weird shot, but I don't know if it matched the category as well as this did. So that's why I picked this one.
Oh, it matches the category, and I would you've cropped this a little bit, right?
Oh yeah.
I can tell that because it's a 2.3 meg, and I believe your camera is what, 40?
My camera shoots 42 meg pictures.
Right.
Yeah, they were far away, so I cropped it in to get them tighter.
With all due respect, the fact that you've cropped it at least 60%, that's a lot of sharpness right there. So it fits the category extremely well. And I'm a Canon guy, and I know the Sonys are right up there also, but we're catching up with you. Don't worry.
I think you might have taken over recently, but I won't say anything.
Yes, we did. I own the new EOS R5, so
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. That wins.
But it's a great picture.
it's a great shot. Any
Thank you.
closing comments there, Joel?
I thought I was the only Sony person in the club, but
Well,
that's good to hear.
Like I said, this is one of the two that we chose. So go ahead, move to the next one, Sandy.
Then we have Other Nature, and we've seen this one before. It's Ileana Dessa's Magic Light picture.
Yes. Fully agreed. And I want to make a comment here about phones. Yes, Jan uses an iPhone 12 Pro Max.
And I'll tell you, I could put it up to some of his pictures. It's amazing what it does. I can't physically hold the camera anymore, so I'm doing the next best thing. I love to oversaturate. This is fabulous. And she did it with an 8+. So kudos, whoever this, are they there?
Is the creator here?
No, she couldn't be. with
Okay.
us.
In this image, what I told Sandy Townsend when we first discussed these is that many people don't realize Audubon is not all about the birds. It's about the birds and the entire surroundings that support that environment. And that's what this image talks about. I knew immediately when I saw the image where it was taken. I did not know it was an iPhone, but that just goes to show you, you don't have to have, just like Chris and myself, you don't need $5, $10, $15,000 worth of camera equipment to get a good image. Anybody who owns this image would be so proud, like I said, to do a 20 by 30 of this and hang it on your wall in your living room. The light is exceptionally good. The colors are just beautiful. As Jan said, the saturation lends itself to causing the image to pop out. And kudos for the fact that it was done on an iPhone.
And it's a perfect picture to be framed for a beach home.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
This would go wonderful in any environment on the beach. Joel, go ahead.
I especially like the plane here from large or tall to small. It gives the picture in general a little bit of a depth to it. And it kind of draws your eye into it. And I think that's, plus the colors are a knockout. I mean, it can't beat it. So it was, you did add the saturation, you said.
Yep.
Okay.
Like I said, it's well balanced. The composition's very good. Don't let iPhones scare you. And to anybody that's still here in the group, the bottom line is us guys that own the big expensive equipment, we go out and we can shoot anywhere from 200 to 2,000 images in 2 or 3 hours.
Yes, I can't do that.
The bottom line is you want 2 or 3 good ones, and it's all about timing and what nature gives you. That's it for me, Sandy. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, George and Dan.
I've been carrying a phone with a good camera with me when I go out, and if I need a wider shot, I just grab the phone.
So do we.
Okay. Now I'll tell you a little bit about Roger and Dottie. Roger started taking photos of birds in high school. At one point in his young life, his mother gave him cash and suggested he buy a decent camera and lens and take a good picture of a cardinal for her. He bought a used Canon body and a telephoto lens and was on his way of becoming a bird photographer. During a visit to Lettuce Lake, he fell in love with the cooperative avian models. Roger's photos have been used in numerous Tampa Audubon publications. He also won first prize in a Tampa Audubon photography show at Ybor City Hillsborough Community College. Roger is going to be helped tonight by his wife, Dottie Priori-Sheets. While Roger looks at wildlife photography from a more technical point of view, she looks for balance, content, and visual interest. Her beautiful artwork has been featured in numerous art shows in the Tampa area. So take it away, Roger and Dottie.
We like this picture a lot. We like snowies, and snowies are so pretty, and they got the golden feet. But to capture that on this little antenna thing with the little wires coming out was just superb. It just fit together so well. And it's a beautiful picture. I mean, look at the fine focus on the feathers. It's beautiful.
Oftentimes wind creates some beautiful opportunities in photography. So, next.
I was looking at the ISO over here. This is really a low number.
Right.
And in general, this is a low number as well.
Right.
And yet it appears that it was a windy day, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable capture. And
I've used that camera, and it's a good camera. And you can certainly get shots like this out of it. And that says a lot.
I just want to.
Oh, he's going to go. Yeah.
Look at the tiny little swirls in the feathers.
Yeah, the low ISO is going to give you less noise, but you got a camera that handles noise well.
Yeah.
This is a remarkable picture.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing it.
I don't know who is the.
Linda Bennett took that photo.
Okay.
And then for habitat, they selected Anthony Goldman Sandhill Crane Colt in the Wildflowers. And Anthony's here tonight too.
This one is kind of a heartfelt thing because we have a pair of sandhill cranes that nest about 30 feet from my back lanai. And right now the colt, there's only one, but he's as big as mom is. So every year we've been lucky to watch the colts grow up. And with the flowers and everything, it was a very peaceful, calming picture. But yet you see youth and.
Photographically, we all know we've all tried taking photographs down low at our little loved creatures and getting that without having those wonderful, cute little flowers go right in front of their face and right in front of their eye and just where you don't want it to be. this captured the whole thing. There are some flowers that are enough in focus that you know exactly what you're looking at. And you can see all of this cute little face and eyes, fluffy little body.
Yes, here again, the focus is somewhat narrow with the 5.6. And you can see how this is out of focus, which is good. And right here, it's tack sharp.
Yep.
Who was the photographer?
That's me, Tony Goldman. I'm using my wife's iPad, so it says Maurice's iPad, but
Okay.
I also had a photo earlier. How this photo got generated, but I remember it pretty well. I was sitting early March, Saturday afternoon at home, and a neighbor and friend called me on my cell phone and said, I've got two very young sandhill crane babies in my yard. I'm sure you want to take photos. So I dropped everything, took my camera and ran over to my friend's house. And I took lots of photos and quite a lot of these, they were probably about 2 or 3 days old in these beautiful purple wildflowers. And fortunately, a couple of them came out just how I wanted. And this was one of them. I was using the same as equipment as for the other photo that was up here, same as the great horned owl. I was using Canon or 1DX Mark II with a 1.4 converter and a 500 lens. And I don't possess a tripod, so everything is handheld. I was in fact lying in the grass taking this one.
Was this camera on a tripod?
No tripod. I don't use a tripod.
An 800 millimeter lens or 700 millimeter lens, and you didn't use a tripod. Remarkable. Outstanding picture.
Thank you.
Roger?
Next.
And then action shot was Carol DeVillers, The Chase, the reddish egrets.
Well, reddish egrets is another one of our favorites. We've gone down to Fort DeSoto just to take pictures of reddish egrets in mating colors. And this is a classic.
It's so whimsical. It made us laugh as soon as we saw it. But I mean, photographically, it's all there. The action is there. The whimsy is there. The color is there. Clarity is there.
You see, that's ISO of 2000. That's fairly high. But
Right.
the camera could handle it. It did. And the f-stop of 20 is much higher than you would normally take a picture.
Right. I don't think he had to do it that high. But when you have multiple birds, you really want to try to get the f-stop up there so you get both in focus.
Right, definitely.
But
definitely.
yeah, the birds were cooperating for him a little, and he didn't have to do it that high, I think.
Yeah, this was Carol's picture, wasn't it?
Yes. And, you know, when I'm there, I shoot different types of birds and different action shots. So sometimes I don't have time to quickly adjust my settings. So it was at this, you know, f20, but I also wanted it to be all sharp.
Right.
And it happened very fast. So as soon as I saw it, I just shot it. I thought those two were so funny.
Yeah, they're so entertaining.
Reddish egrets in general, it's like you gotta keep your camera on them. You don't know when they'll do something crazy.
Yeah, and it's like she's saying, you know, well, catch me if you can. And then
Yeah, right.
she's running off.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that some of the newer cameras actually have settings that can be saved. And I have in mind 3 different ranges, one for the landscape, one for birds, and one for close-up. And it's very quick. You can quickly change from one to the other without having to worry about all the other settings. It's something that some people may want to consider.
Oh, Joel, by the way, we're both Sony shooters.
And have been for several years now.
Okay, the last one that Roger and that they chose is Other Nature by Eliana Dessa, Magic Light. We've seen
For
this.
the,
Guess what?
for the third time tonight. But this is actually one of our favorite places to just stand and watch the sunset or just kick back and relax.
Haven't seen the sunrise there, so this was beautiful because one of us doesn't get up too early. Gotta be me.
But this has a lot of good feelings for us because this is one of our favorite places to take pictures.
So notice most all of the pictures that we chose evoke emotion. Rather than just looking at the photographs as technically, which generally Roger does, but this time they all kind of hit us emotionally.
Mm-hmm. It's cool.
Well, I think this picture would not have been as good had something been missing in it. It just seems like it was arranged.
Mm-hmm.
This here anchors this side to this side,
Right.
this side. It's really well composed. Good
You,
eye.
you could say as a photographer, well, it was accidental, but keep making accidents like that then.
Well, yeah. It obviously it's one of the most important things about photography is composition and composition of the camera when you see it, and capturing that is something that is a skill, and this one really demonstrates that. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks everyone for those wonderful pictures.
Yes, and including us in your show.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations, everybody. Great photos.
Thank you all very, very much for participating. We hope to see some of the new faces again when the photography club starts meeting again in September. Be sure to join us for the joint meeting in July 14th. And happy birding to everyone.
Yes.
As a closing remark, I just want to say that we don't expect everybody to contribute pictures like you've seen here. We would really welcome a problem picture. I really like that because it gives us an opportunity to suggest ways that picture might be improved. And that's what we're here for. This is not so much a contest, at least in our regular meetings, as it is an opportunity for people to share, to learn, and to become better photographers and enjoy it more, okay? So please join us in the future. We really will welcome you and love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Good
Bye.
night, all.
Yes,
Thank
Sandra.
you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Careful.
Night, Mary.
Night, Mick. Say hi to Lynn.
I sure will. Bye-bye.